terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's rights to defend themselves against this brutality?
We're just going to go through here.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads?
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America!
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. You may remember from earlier in the week, we did a video here discussing the reactions from the squad concerning Hamas's heinous attack of Israel. You may remember that we discussed the pattern in the statements that we found from them. The weak or non-existent condemnation of Hamas, the justification of their actions, the calls for ceasefire and de-escalation, which roughly translated to an implication that Israel did not have the right to defend themselves, and then a demand for capitulation to whatever demands are out there in the ether concerning Palestine and Israel. And you may recall that Rashida Tlaib was one of those squad members that we discussed in that video. Well, since that video, we've seen news of atrocities committed by Hamas, including babies beheaded and burned, hostages taken, elderly beaten and tortured and murdered. I don't need to tell you, it's been all over the news. It's war, and war is hell. But despite all the news of these atrocities and war crimes and heinous acts committed by Hamas, Rashida Tlaib has yet to call them out on it. She's yet to step up and say, this is wrong. You know, I think a reasonable person could separate out a pro-Palestinian position from the war crimes and the barbaric nature of Hamas and what atrocities they're committing in Israel. But she hasn't done that for some reason. And it looks like even her own party has had enough of it. We're going to discuss it further in this video, but before I do, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and if you like what you see and hear in this video, smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff. You're going to see something in this video that you might not ever see again from me as well. So let's get right into it. So this is Fox News' Hillary Vaughn trying to catch up with Rashida Tlaib to get her statement concerning the news of the completely barbaric actions that Hamas has committed. Now, any normal person, I think, would have taken this opportunity to make a full-throated condemnation of such actions. Full stop, completely unacceptable, barbaric, unspeakable, all those things that come to mind when you think about these unspeakable acts. But that's not what Rashida Tlaib does here.
Terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's rights to defend themselves against this brutality?
We're just going to go through here.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads? Congresswoman, do you have a comment on Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads? You have nothing to say about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads? Do you condone what Hamas has done, chopping off babies' heads, burning children alive, raping women in the street? You have no comment about children's heads being chopped off? Congressman, why do you have a Palestinian flag outside your office if you do not condone what Hamas terrorists have done to Israel? Do Israeli lives not matter to you?
What a coward. Is it really so hard to utter the words that beheading children is wrong? Is it really so hard to utter the words that violating women is wrong? Is it really so hard to concede that a people under attack have the right to defend themselves? Is it really so hard to say that their lives matter? You would think that Rashida Tlaib would take this as an opportunity to explain her position, to make her feelings known. She could have said that there's a difference between pro-Palestinian movements and Hamas. She could have said that what we're seeing from Hamas is atrocious, horrible, the brutality is off the charts, and it must be condemned full-throatedly, full stop. But at the same time, This is my position on Palestine, which is separate and apart from what these barbaric thugs are doing. She could have done that. She could have made this a teachable moment about her position. She could have taken this opportunity to educate people. But instead, she ran like a coward. It would be easy to dismiss my words. After all, I admit I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I'm on the right, she's on the left. We don't see eye to eye on a number of things, so it's easy to dismiss my words, and I get that. But what happens when the White House takes the time to condemn your words and your position? Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. Now here's the part that you probably thought you'd never hear out of me. Joe Biden and the White House are right about something. I know, it's shocking to hear coming from me, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. And on this situation in Israel, the White House has been unequivocally supporting Israel, and it's been good to see. Credit where credit's due. President Biden's statements have been on the money when it comes to Israel. I haven't had cause to disagree with him. He's been full-throated in his support for Israel. And in this time of divides in our country, it's kind of unifying to see it. I'm all for it. I'm all about it. But never did I think that the White House would call out Rashida Tlaib and the Socialist Squad for their positions on what's going on in Israel. But that's what we got here. Listen to Jean-Pierre in response to this question.
What is the president's message to members of Congress who seem to be equating the Hamas terror attack with actions that were previously taken by Israel?
Look, here's the thing, and which congressional members?
Well, there have been some members of Congress who have called for a ceasefire, and they have not gone as far as backing the administration's call for support for Israel.
Clearly referencing the Squad. Remember the pattern I talked to you about. No condemnation, justification, ceasefire calls, and capitulation to demands. He referenced at least one of those in that question. I guess I'm pretty good at this stuff.
So look, I've seen some of those statements this weekend, and we're going to continue to be very clear. We believe they're wrong, we believe they're repugnant, and we believe they're disgraceful. Our condemnation belongs squarely with terrorists who have brutally murdered, raped, kidnapped hundreds of Israelis. There can be no equivocation about that. There are not two sides here. There are not two sides. President Biden has been clear on where he has stood. You heard from him directly today. You heard from him also on Saturday on this.
And right after this, you're going to hear from Joe Biden and what he has to say as well.
There's been multiple statements from this president, and he's taking action to provide additional support to ensure that Israel has what they need to defend themselves.
One of the worst chapters in human history that reminded us all that expression I learned from my dad early on: silence is complicity. Silence is complicity. It really is.
Now, if that doesn't hit the nail on the head when it comes to Rashida Tlaib, I don't know what does. Silence is complicity. Rashida Tlaib's silence is definitely complicity in my opinion. But I'm going to go one step further than the president did. Silence is comfort to Hamas. Silence encourages tormentors like Hamas to keep on committing the atrocities that they are committing. Because if nobody's admonishing them, calling for them to stop, they seem to take that as carte blanche to continue what they're doing. I take these statements from the White House as a sign that Democrats are waking up to the realization that those that they ally with on the far left, on the fringe of their party, have been controlling their agenda for too long, and they're taking it back now. Those of us on the right have seen this from Rashida Tlaib and the Socialist Squad for years now. And I'm glad that Joe Biden and the White House are coming around to this realization. Maybe it will heal this divide that we're seeing in the country between Republicans and Democrats. I know, I can dream, right? So Rashida Tlaib eventually did break her silence after this confrontation and pressure from Democrats and Republicans alike concerning her positions on Israel. And this is what she had to say. Quote, I do not support the targeting and killing of civilians, whether in Israel or Palestine. So there's your condemnation-ish that I keep talking about. The fact that some have suggested otherwise is offensive and rooted in bigoted assumptions about my faith and ethnicity. Well, isn't that a surprise? She pulls the victim card. This has nothing to do with Rashida Tlaib's ethnicity or her faith. This has to do with humanity. Where is her humanity? It took days to get one sentence like this out of her, but she had to throw in the victimization card and call everybody a bigot. We're not the bigots here, Rashida. I think Rashida Tlaib is failing to recognize that she has her own prejudices, and that prejudice has turned into a fanaticism that has rotted her sense of reason. It's almost sociopathic in nature. Now, I talk about this kind of lunacy in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. The key to the lunatic buffoon, the buffoon that acts with such fanaticism like Rashida Tlaib, is to recognize what all freakouts involve, and that's the trigger and the emotional hijack. In this case, the trigger is the pressure that she's under to make statements concerning the inhumane activity going on committed by Hamas. That pressure has built up to the point where we're getting this emotional hijack, this backlash of calling people bigots because she's not making statements that are expected of her. Not only that are expected of her, but that humanity demands. Again, Tlaib could have taken this opportunity to say, of course I'm human. I understand what's going on here. These actions by Hamas are wrong. But this is the reason why I support Palestine, and separated out the terror from the issue she wants to promote. But she hasn't done that. She's been cowardly in her actions and acting like a lunatic. Now, if this were an isolated incident with Rashida Tlaib, I think that people would be upset, they'd be annoyed, and they would condemn her for it. But I think that they would understand ultimately at the end, this is an emotional issue for her. And I think that many people would give her a little bit of grace for having that position and acting the way she's been acting. But this is a pattern that's been going on for years. That's why Republican Congressman Jack Bergman is introducing a resolution to censure Tlaib for her behavior.
I just introduced a resolution to censure Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib of Michigan. I don't take this action lightly, but her longstanding history of anti-Semitic and racist rhetoric towards Israel cannot go unchecked. While we don't all have to see eye to eye on every issue, I'd hope we can all agree that the terrorists raping women, murdering festival goers, and decapitating babies is a crime against all of humanity, and we must be able to call out that kind of unbridled evil in our world. Unfortunately, Congresswoman Tlaib chose a different path and justified the terrorist actions based on so-called Israeli occupation. We must never forget that Israel was founded as a safe haven for Jews after the scourge of anti-Semitism in Europe led to extermination of more than 6 million Jews. Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations operating within Gaza and the West Bank share one goal: to eliminate the state of Israel. I will always stand with Israel, and I will never waver in supporting its right to self-defense.
And Bergman's resolution details that long-standing history that he references. So let's take a look at this resolution. Whereas Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has a long history of making anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli remarks. In May of 2019, Congresswoman Tlaib was a guest on a podcast and said, quote, "There's a kind of a calming feeling, I always tell folks, when I think of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Holocaust." Whereas in September of 2022, Congresswoman Tlaib participated in an event hosted by Americans for Justice in Palestine Action and said, quote, "I want you all to know that among the progressives, it becomes clear that you cannot claim to hold progressive values yet back Israel's apartheid government." Whereas, on May 9th, 2023, the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League wrote a letter to Speaker McCarthy and Minority Leader Jeffries warning them of an event Congresswoman Tlaib was planning on hosting in the Capitol entitled Nakba 75 and the Palestinian People. It goes on to say, quote, "In previous years, many Nakba Day events have devolved into hateful, anti-Israel, and anti-Semitic language. Just last year, in May of 2022, speakers at Nakba Day events across the country variously referred to Israelis as, I'm not going to say those words, and called for you-know-what to Israel, and further stated that everyone should fight within his means, fight with stones, fight with guns, fight with planes, drones, and others will fight with rockets." Whereas, in July of this year, Congresswoman Tlaib voted against adopting a resolution expressing the sense of Congress supporting the State of Israel, and just this month, the day after a series of coordinated attacks, Congresswoman Tlaib issued a statement calling Israel an apartheid state. For all these reasons, that's why he wants Rashida Tlaib to be censured and for Congress to renounce fringe beliefs about the State of Israel. I don't know how you were raised, but I was taught that America is a place where many different people from many diverse backgrounds can come together and unite as one and all be Americans together. The sort of regressive thinking of Rashida Tlaib that your ethnicity and your heritage and your religion defines how you interact with other people is completely backward thinking. I thought she's supposed to be a progressive. I thought progressives are supposed to embrace diversity. Well, where is the embracing of the diversity of the Israeli people? Her backwards thinking is a remnant of a bygone era when you bring the violence of Hamas into it and you don't step up for humanity and put humanity first. That makes you one of the most irredeemable types of buffoons. So that's my opinion, guys. I want to know what you think about Rashida Tlaib and this story. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you like what you've heard, please smash that thumbs up button. Like, share the show with your friends, all that stuff. And please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. You guys are the ones that keep me going. I love going into the comments and interacting with you, regardless of whatever your point of view is. I appreciate different points of view. I am so happy when you bring them up to me. It makes me think as well. I want to make sure that I'm constantly evolving and reevaluating my thinking because I don't know it all. You don't know it all, but maybe together we can come to some kind of understanding. And I hope that understanding is that there is bipartisan support against all political buffoonery, which is why I hope you guys keep coming back to have more conversations just like this one about all the shenanigans and buffoonery that's going on this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.